and welcome back to COAGG Conversations. I'm Doomcutie, your host, and with me today I have the fantastic Triana. Welcome to the COAGG family.
Oh my gosh, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. It's finally,
I
God, I'm so glad to finally be here because we've been trying to set this up for legitimately months. Like when you first were floating the idea of doing this podcast, you were like, hey, we should get Triana in sometime. And I'm like, hey, someday the stars are going to align and it's going to happen. But it's not this week and it's not next week and it's not the one after. And I'm
and
glad that
look,
it finally
I have to
happened.
get back to you. I'm just gonna. No, you know what? When that happened, that same scenario happened like meeting IRL because we were always like aligned with similar events. Obviously, I'm a little bit less in the esports space, but like with PAX, I've followed and known about you for probably about 2 years now, and we've only met twice
And one was at PAX this year and the other was,
this
I want to say
year.
DreamHack.
No, it was the Xbox Fan Fest.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and
Yes, it
I didn't
was.
actually I wasn't sure if you were actually going, so I randomly bumped into you at the bar at Fortress, and I was like, "Oh, I did not expect to see you here."
Hold on, you go. When you say you bumped into me at the bar, okay, I am a sober gal, all right? I was not at the bar, I was near the bar. There was like the makeup, like the nail polish bar was the bar that I was at, right?
Oh, yes, you are correct. I hadn't you know what? I don't think I even had a drink that night.
You didn't need to.
I
The energy in
I
the
had a
room was
boba
enough.
tea. I had a boba tea. Was that what that
Yeah.
was?
Yeah,
I
that was
don't
the boba tea. I should tell you at this point that also, I believe, probably had like energy drink in it. I think that was like boba tea with a little
Oh,
bit. Yeah, I think that was part of it. But they were good though.
okay.
You need
I
that at like 3 a.m. to get through like an hour and a
oh,
half of presentation.
and those
45
chairs,
minutes of Starfield was like incredible. But like at 4:30 in the morning, my eyes were bleary.
I don't think I hadn't slept, that entire night, so and I was actually flying out at 10, I think 10 the next
So you would have gone straight from Fortress to the airport.
I slept for
Almost.
2
Oh,
hours.
yeah, hotel. Pick up your
Yeah,
belongings and then go to the airport.
yeah, so that was wild. Anyway, we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Triana. Now, I have been researching your history in this space, and it's
Oh
all
God,
good.
here we go.
It's all good.
Okay, a few, a few.
It's all good, but I have to say probably the most interesting thing that I found, and it's more common than I think people think, is the just experience and transformation that you have had over the years that you've worked in this industry. And I I just wanted to ask, like, how have you found your journey so far? How did you get started? To confess to us.
Go
What's the
go through the
real
whole thing.
story of Triana?
Well, okay, I mean, look, my confession, I guess, is, and this, given the wrap up that you've just given me, feels kind of bad, but I almost feel guilty being on this podcast because I feel like I'm not part of it enough. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I'm not enough of a, maybe it's imposter syndrome, maybe it's kind of the perfectionist side of me that I'm absolutely trying to battle. But like, there are people who do really cool things. I just do this as a hobby for fun, right? So in my
Mhm,
day-to-day life, I'm a broadcaster, I work at a radio station, I work in a marketing communications role as well. I'm on air. I host shows live. I pre-produce shows. I work with broadcasters and especially new and emerging and developing talent to help them hone their craft and kind of
mhm,
grow as presenters. So I guess that's where part of that comes from. But that's also kind of how I approached streaming because I
mm,
came into streaming from a very broadcast, like, okay, we need to have content, we need to have a running sheet, we need to know like what's going to happen on the broadcast. And then I started doing it, it's like, oh, we're just kind of playing games and hanging out. It felt very kind of opposite to what I was doing. So I kind of approached streaming from the angle of having a space to try to practice being the version of myself that I wanted to be. I guess if that makes sense. So I started out
I get that.
I want to say 2018 was when I started. It was when we first got internet connected at my house. I first got my first home PC. I'd been playing games on like Xbox and Switch
Mhm.
before then, but I finally had like a PC so I could do the streaming thing.
Yeah.
And went to shout out to Barjo, by the way. Could we shout out Barjo? I was at
Yeah,
Barjo's PAX
okay.
party.
Yeah.
And was able to ask him questions about how he does what he does and kind of because he has like a wildly creative stream. Like he's kind of
Yeah.
bouncing off the walls, doing lots of different things. I was able to ask him questions about, how he prepares for that and how much effort goes in behind the scenes so that I
Mhm.
could kind of ready myself for what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And it was really, really good to have that perspective. And then he was like, you just need to just start doing it. I'm like, okay, cool, bet. Like,
Yep.
I started the next week. So I started playing a game called Onrush, which
Okay.
RIP Onrush. I don't think it exists anymore. It's a 6v6 tactical racing game.
Okay.
If you imagine like Overwatch was done with racing cars trying to like slam into each other and knock each other off the track, it was kind of a little bit like that.
Okay.
And I was in like the top kind of 1 or 2% of people playing that game, but there were very few people playing that game, so it wasn't a competitive category. And so that was on Twitch. That was really, really early on. And then this game came out. You might have heard of it, Forza Horizon 4.
Yeah.
um,
I might have.
might have heard a
I
little
might
bit.
have. I might have a couple of months in that game.
Hours, months. Anyway, so I was playing that, and that was obviously tied in with Mixer. So I started streaming on Mixer, and that was where I really started kind of growing. I found a community that worked for me, and again, it was kind of fun being a little off Broadway because people like Twitch was quite a dangerous place for a trans person to be at the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
It's much better now, but at the time it wasn't great. And Mixer were very much very on it in terms of moderation and not
Yeah.
standing for transphobia. I guess smaller um, group of people who are on the platform, so it's easier for their cat team to be able to get to it and take people out. So that was really useful over there. And then when that collapsed, I kind of came back to Twitch and kind of dove in. But again, it's not something that I do full time. Like I look at people who are, creating these incredible podcasts and putting hours and hours into the production of it and creating these brands, or like, people who are streaming every day. You look at people like Loserfruit who are just
Yeah.
on in this upper echelon. Even people like, Profound Rice, who
Yeah.
is creating this really beautiful community there and also doing the hosting thing and the casting thing in certain games.
Mhm.
And I'm doing this on the side as a bit of fun. I don't have subs or bits enabled on my channel deliberately because I would feel like as soon as I started having that, I feel like compelled, like I have to keep streaming to kind of make the
Mm.
people who are subbing happy. So I literally just do it for fun and because I enjoy it. And through that, that's led to a whole bunch of really incredible opportunities. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically of the growth, but I guess the growth I've shown is, I mean, look, when I started out, I was streaming under a different name. I was streaming under
Yeah.
what almost felt like a character at the time.
Mhm.
And then as I kind of fought for my new name and got Triana and legally was Triana, I was like, right, let's
Yeah.
blanket it and let's do it everywhere. And then everything kind of settled down and I felt much more myself. Like I wasn't having to pretend to be somebody else. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's mostly the growth is becoming more confident in that wildly unpredictable broadcast environment.
I think it's such a beautiful journey though. I know people always say, and I've always felt like a little bit bad about it, but uh people have said that consistency equals growth. But I personally, like, I want to feel free to create whatever I want and
Mm,
create things that speak to me. And if people want to come along for that journey, come along, you're more than welcome. um and as a creative in this space, I I don't think that you need to say, "Oh, I'm less important because I don't do this full time," or because, people are doing it in a better way, or I would I would prefer this approach to how I'm actually able to do it because of the way I have to live my life, because I need to eat and put a roof over my head. But yeah, I think I I have actually I found myself in the very early days actually comparing myself to other people, and I was like, you're not other people.
Mm.
And I found myself needing to say, hey, you know what? Comparison is actually the thief of joy. As much as we can, be inspired by people. I think, we see a very surface level vision of their life. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And I think that the more we can, accept our journey, because it is beautiful, that I think the better off we'll be as creators in this space, if that makes sense.
This is the thing that I've continued to kind of struggle with and unpack, and especially this year, is that I'm very much a perfectionist, and I'm trying really, really hard to undo those perfectionist kind of ways of thinking, because I am my own harshest critic. And if I can't do something perfectly, then I'm like, well, it was garbage and I hate it, you know? But
Yeah, I get that. I've had to let go of a few things. I mentioned in the green room beforehand that I'm not that great at video editing, but I'm finding myself having to edit things. So whenever I don't have to edit something, I'm like, yes, thank you, amazing. Otherwise, I feel like absolute garbage, because I'll sit there and I'll like analyze it and I'll like drive myself crazy.
I work in a live broadcast environment, and I find being live where you can just kind of flub your line and then kind of barge on through and hope it's fine. I find that a more fun place
Yeah,
to
I feel
be.
called out. I feel very called
No, but I
out,
think
to be
that's more
honest.
fun, and I think that's more authentic than when you create something that you know is going to be there for a really long time, and you mess up and you go, "Oh God, hang on, I'll take that again." And then
Yeah.
you take it again and you take it again, and it's your sixth take, and you're like finally happy with the product that you've put together. I think doing it live in real time the first time is more authentic, and also means less editing. So I connect with that on a deep
Okay.
spiritual level.
Yeah, like I never want to create more work for myself or other people, and I'm not in a position like people, like Loser Fruit and like Pokimane and things like that. Like I can't afford an editor. Like I don't get to just send all here's my stream, or here's all my logins, download them, and turn them into something funny for me. I can't I can't do that. So yeah, we're just out here. We're just out here trying to live our fun, authentic, best life. And
Do you know,
I
I think
think,
the thing about you, and it's something that I also try to kind of lean into as much as possible. I don't know if you know Naysaga, Nnesaga, from over in the UK. She's
mm,
Stephanie Naoma. She
oh,
has
okay,
a
yeah,
yeah, she has a thing, impact over numbers.
a,
And I like to think, or I like to hold on to the idea that the impact that I have, regardless of which platform I'm on, regardless of whether I'm streaming or broadcasting or posting dumb shit on Twitter or posting on Blue Sky or whatever it is that there is impact in what I'm doing, and that hopefully, even if it's not perfect and exactly the way I imagined it, it's cutting through and meaning something. I think you touched on that earlier when you called yourself a creative rather than a
mm,
creator.
well, yeah, like I suppose. I think because it's not my full-time thing.
Mm.
I think we're always creating in our lives, but because this doesn't pay the rent, or provide for my life monetarily, it provides for my life spiritually, emotionally. I love what I do, uh, but it doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So I suppose that's why I can sort of, I'm a bit like you. I can separate the things that I do in this space from my everyday, even though I think about it a lot. um, so yeah, and I think speaking of being a creator in this space, the reason why, and it had nothing to do with the fact that you're a trans streamer, it was the fact that you played Forza. I was like, hell yeah, I'm so into that. I'm so into that. You go, like, honestly, like, I was so excited because it was, I don't know, and you probably know more than I do. I don't know many women who play Forza on stream, and it was just so exciting for me.
It's a very it's a narrow field. I will
Yeah.
say
So
that
someone
much.
said that racing games are niche, and I was like, what do you mean?
They're a little bit niche in that they don't have the same I guess kind of market penetration as games that are, you know, like first person shooter games
Yeah.
or games like Fortnite, which are massive. But then you look at, you know, when you say racing games, the names that come to mind for a lot of people is, oh, like Mario Kart. And that's
Yeah.
got
That's
some of
huge.
the most market penetration of any game ever. So, I mean, you know, obviously a huge franchise behind it, but it's still a huge part of the landscape. And I challenge anyone to say, oh, hey, do you want to play Mario Kart? Yeah, sure, let's play some Mario Kart. Like,
Yeah, it's
no one's going to be like, nah, that's mid. Like, it doesn't happen.
yeah.
It doesn't happen.
For
But yeah,
sure.
there's very few people or women in the space who play racing games in particular. And I think that similar to kind of the really macho shooter games, I think a lot of the time it can come down to the community around the game and the way that
Yeah.
like, especially if you're playing a game where there are comms online and you got to chat with people,
Yeah.
that brings issues alongside it. But
Yeah,
I
no, I
think
don't.
when you're playing games like Forza, where the whole point is like, regardless of what you do, you're going to get points and you're going to have fun. Like, I
Yeah.
think that makes it a more welcoming space.
Oh, for sure. And I think that overall, like, I could talk for days and days and days about the accessibility inside Forza. Like, honestly, I've never had a bad experience. Like, I mean, outside of a few multiplayer connectivity issues, but we won't talk about that. Outside of that, it's been fantastic.
The only times I've had issues is when people have been like, I don't know, deliberately trying to like slam into people on the corners and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And I'm like, that's very rare. And that's not even on a sexism level or because of
Yeah.
anyone as a person. It's just because they're angry or they're bad at
Yeah.
the game.
It's like,
Who
go
knows?
play Rocket League. You
Yeah.
know, I know a fantastic game for you, or, you know, Demolition Derby, or, you know, like,
Wreckfest.
Wreckfest. Let's go. I actually I played Wreckfest at I think the Games Expo this year, and I'd never played it before, and I was like, and it was on a steering wheel with pedals, and I was like, oh my god. I could not. It was not fun. I was like, who likes being rammed into, like, in a video game? You know what I mean? Like, no one.
So I was lucky enough to host the Xbox ANZ Game Pass Gauntlet earlier this year,
That
which
was
was a thing where we
amazing.
had like 5 different random games that would come up, and players who had entered the competition, like, you didn't know what game it was going to be until we literally like turned the screens on and it's like, surprise, you're playing like Cooking Simulator and you got to like cook a burger or something, and they had no idea what the game was or what the
Yeah.
instructions were. And the very final round was Wreckfest, a game that at the time I had not played, and I had to be there doing commentary for this game I hadn't played. And everyone's like, oh, he's the racing fan, Triana. This will be great. And I'm just like,
Ah.
yeah, big crash.
Yeah, well, that was like when I was brought into the Perth Twitch streaming team are so fantastic, but, you know, we're a little bit limited. And I actually filled in for someone who was casting for Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh, great.
Oh, it
How
was a
did you
great
find that?
time. I had to press all the buttons for the cameras. And I was like, oh my god. Oh, and you had to, like, other people were talking, but I was like,
So you were vision switching. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought I was gonna be talking,
Hmm.
but I didn't end up speaking, except for I interviewed some of the players, like, in between rounds, but yeah, so that was fun, and then we raised money for the Starlight Foundation, so that was a really
Beautiful.
yeah, it was a fantastic experience, but controlling the camera angles of Rainbow Six Siege was
Oh,
nuts.
you're observing like camera angles in game. I thought you meant like in a studio somewhere, but in game you're observing. Yeah, right.
Well, no, it was in the studio, but
Oh, okay. So
I had control over the camera. So it was like either top down or follow this player, follow that player.
okay,
Um, yeah,
observing. Yeah.
okay. I'm I
This is the
don't
thing.
like it.
So there's so many different bits of lingo in the scene, but if you say, "Oh, I've had like a little bit of experience observing in Rainbow Six Siege," people go, "Oh, okay, I can get you to do that again," and then
Oh, okay. All right. I'll write that down.
observer,
Observing. Observer.
observer.
Lovely. But yeah, like it was fantastic. So I totally understand that, sometimes you're put in positions where you're like adjacent to it and like some knowledge, but also you're kind of on the fly. But you know what? I think that creates like some really good skills. It encourages resilience and problem solving and just overall, like you realize that you're actually more capable than you think you are. And at the end of the day, other people don't know what you don't know.
It's also something that you're doing very well right now, and that I think anyone who, by which I mean hosting, right? Like the role of the host is not necessarily to be the most knowledgeable person in the room.
Mm,
It's not
mm,
it's not to, make yourself look smarter than everybody else. It's literally to kind of direct traffic and the flow of
mhm.
conversation, and also set up your guests so that they look like the experts. So you can come in with that very limited knowledge and then say, "So, Doom, as someone who's been creating this podcast for a while, what kind of challenges have you come up against?" And that gives you the opportunity as the expert in that area to be able to talk on the thing that you're knowledgeable about. That's the role of a host. That's what you're doing beautifully here in this podcast. And I think,
Well, thanks.
yeah, you're crushing it.
Oh, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
it's what I excel in, just because I enjoy setting up other people in the
Mm,
conversation for
yeah.
them to look good. Because if they look good, then I look good because I've thrown to them.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, like, I'm curating the guests on here, and it's my job to bring on people from diverse backgrounds. And at the end of the day, I have to, like you say, set up the guest to answer questions that I think the audience would want to know, and it's very fun. It's very fun. I like it. I like it a lot. That's why I keep doing this. But this isn't about me. This is about
Sorry.
you. And
I've accidentally flipped it back on you again. How does this Sorry.
no, it's you know what? It's totally fine. And I'm actually really flattered because not many people like ask me. So it's very nice. What do you find the most fun about your job? What what keeps you
Uh,
in that space?
which job? The my day job, or the
Your
the
day, your
streaming
day,
gaming thing?
we'll start with day job.
Okay, so it's for me, I guess it's all creativity.
Yeah.
Creativity is my thing for anyone, is that if you're trying to work out, what it is that you really want to do as a career, or as a pursuit, as a hobby that you're really interested in, work out what like the core of why you're interested in
Yeah.
that, because then it will open up the world to a whole bunch of different things. And for me, that core is creativity. And so when I broadcast on a radio station, it's working out creative ways to, I don't know, introduce a song by Kylie Minogue for the 538th time, and say something different that you haven't said before. How can you think creatively to come up with something that you haven't said yet? How can you, use a different piece of audio to kind of prove a point, or to make this song shine? How can I bring in a clip from a caller that someone has said, that they've said something funny, and I can like take that and flip it into something else that is cool.
Yeah.
In my like 5 days a week, but probably 6 days a week job at the moment, in like a marketing communications angle, it's me being in charge of social media, coming up with creative ideas for content to put online, but also keeping our clients happy and making
Mhm.
sure that the content that they're bringing is something that's going to connect with our audience, and also sending out EDMs, like electronic digital marketing. And
Yeah.
if I've got to try and make this sound interesting in an email, how can I say it in a way that is a little bit different and will get people thinking a little bit differently? When it comes to streaming, and even in gaming, I think when people play games, you can either play through a game in a very kind of linear, I was going to say speed running way, but that's actually wrong. But you can try and play through it with the path of least resistance, or you can try and think really creatively to solve the problems that you come up against in a game. So in a game
Yeah.
like Portal, there are some levels where there are multiple ways to solve it, because you're kind of approaching the puzzle from different angles. And that's the point. It's the creative thinking. In a
Yeah.
racing game, it's okay, how am I going to get in front of this player? It could be on this next corner, but I could also sit back here and take this unique line through here. And maybe I'll end up on the other side in a different position where I can then challenge on the next corner. So,
Mhm.
so the creativity and the playfulness, I think, is the core of why I love what I do. Um, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, definitely. I
It
think I
does.
think people I think people need to find their why, and I think that's the reason uh, why some people might struggle in their careers, because they haven't found their why just yet. And I think it's a really lovely thing that you've been able to hone some professional skills and even some soft skills, and then bring that into a space where you're having fun. And that's the best thing. I know for a fact that for myself, my education degree has definitely assisted me as a host, being on podcasts, talking to people, my communication skills. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who do have, and obviously we're coming back to this, but that every day the thing that they're professionally trained in, they really can bring it to something that they really enjoy and really love. And I think that's amazing. Well done to you. uh you're doing so well. Everything that I see from you, whether it is whether it is hosting, whether it is streaming, whatever it is, you come out with such thoughtful, meaningful content, and it really does show. And you might say to yourself, oh well, I'm not posting enough, or I'm not streaming enough, or whatever, but it's quality over quantity. And I feel like you never miss. So
Thank you. That means a lot. Just because I don't know, I have felt like maybe I have been missing lately. I've felt a little bit just with like, so when I moved into this new role at work, probably kind of 2-ish months ago. Before
mhm.
then, I was filling in on that role while they found the new person. Surprise, they found me. Um,
Yay. Oh,
and
don't you love
so
that?
that was me doing this new role and also doing my old role at the same time, and
Mm,
also filling in for someone else who was on leave.
okay,
So,
that's a lot of pressure.
like, it's a lot of pressure, and also it was a lot of, I guess, mental space trying to come up with ideas that would work in all of those different roles.
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, I haven't been able to focus as much time and attention on gaming and streaming as I would like. Um, so this is my own kind of, it's not even a hiatus because I am still streaming, but it's just
Mm,
a little bit of a, I don't know, a creativity break. I saw a really interesting video the other day, and I can't remember the creator. It was a well-known singer-songwriter, and I screenshotted it, and I'm hoping as I open my phone now to scroll through it that the screenshot is still there and I can refer to it. And maybe like she's mentioned the tag. It was a video from like the 1970s or 80s. It was
Okay.
like an old video. And she was talking about creativity and she was like, oh, I just make sure I rotate my crops. I just make sure that, you know, if I'm working on something in music and I'm running out of ideas there, then I'll head over and start painting something. And then I'll come back and after I've run out of ideas in painting, I might pick up the guitar again and start playing
Yeah.
that. And so I think that's part of what has worked for me is having so many different creative outlets that if I ever get stuck in one, I can just focus on something else and then come back to it later on.
Yeah. And I think, and there's actually like that's really admirable because some people like stick to something and even when they stop enjoying it, thinking that if they stop it, they can't come back. But that's really not true. And at the end of the day, like because these things are hobbies, because they are things that just bring us joy. If you're not experiencing joy and you're just doing it to, you know, be consistent or to stay relevant or whatever it is that's driving you at that point, it kind of seems a waste of energy to me. And you know, protecting your energy is so important.
Absolutely it is. Preach. Protect your energy.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, and you've done that. You took a step back from the thing that it was fun, but if it's, you know, my brain is full. You know, streaming is actually more taxing than I think people think. You know, being live for, you know, 3-4 hours, however long you're streaming for, and that's at minimum. It can be very, very draining. And you know, you're going to work, and you know, you're consuming all of your, you know, creative batteries, I suppose. So you definitely need that downtime, that rest time. And I respect that so much, and I do not hesitate to say, you know what, I need to take this time and to communicate that and to, you know, model that kind of self-care is so important in this space, and you do that so well.
Thank you. Can I just touch on a point that you made there that was really interesting? You were talking about streaming for, you know, 3 or 4 hours at a time and needing that downtime. Can I just say streaming is performing?
Yeah, it is.
You are performing if you're on
Yeah.
stream. And I don't know
Yes.
who needs to hear this, but I feel like I'm preaching here to someone, right? Like if you go to like I have had the chance to go and see like Hamilton, right? Like that is a 3.5 hour production. You go to any of these performances, when the show ends, the performers are wiped. Yes, they've been moving around more than we might on stream, but they're wiped. They've been focusing mentally. They've got that kind of creative space mentally of remembering their lines and remembering their movements, remembering the blocking, doing all of that. And you're kind of doing the same thing, except you're also engaged in a game that you're trying to win, right? And also you're mentally engaged in chat and trying to keep up with what everyone's saying in there. That is a lot. And then you come off stream and you wonder why you're exhausted. Like, yeah, you've been nonstop thinking and you've been focusing for 3 or 4 hours and you actually need rest. And it's why I have never and will never do one of those streamathons or subathons.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah, fair.
healthy. It's not
Yeah.
healthy and it's not sustainable. And I think it can potentially be quite dangerous, especially for people who end up doing quite long ones. You know, actually need the time away to rest and decompress, and that actually makes you better in the long run.
Yeah. That's why I will never judge anyone that sleeps on stream. You do you, boo. Like if people
100%.
if people want to give you money while you're sleeping, like I know how important that is.
Do it. Take that money, sleep on stream. But seriously, like I think if you're gonna do a subathon or whatever it is, you know, you actually need to kind of schedule time after the event away to rest and mentally reset and recover. Otherwise, like if you just jump back into it, you're gonna be in a really bad place.
Yeah. I mean, you know, they could be having some help. I don't know. And you know, everyone's you know, energy levels, everyone's mind. We're all different. You know, and what works for one person might not work for you. So if it's working for
100%.
them, great. But if it does become a problem, if you are experiencing, you know, symptoms that you wouldn't normally have, you know, like listen to your body.
Can I on the listen to your body point, this is one of my favorite things. Do you ever play like Nintendo games as a kid? Like specifically Nintendo branded games on like a Nintendo 64 or a Super Nintendo, and it would flash up on the screen like, warning, you should take a break every hour while you play the game because it's really mentally fatiguing. And then you go to like the physical printed instruction manual and it says, you know, if you're looking at a screen the whole day, it's really bad. Make sure to take a 10 to 15-minute break every hour. They're not lying. It's the truth. You actually need to break. I've started and I've gotten really bad at it, and I want to get better at doing it again. Is very deliberately scheduling BRBs in the middle of my stream, because usually I'm streaming for like 3 or 4 hours. Very deliberately scheduling like a 5 or 8 minute break, which is not every 1 hour, but it's every 2 hours, to deliberately look away from the screen and go refill your water bottle, go get a snack, go do something.
Yeah.
Stop looking at the stream. It's going to be here. There's a countdown timer. We'll be back in like 8 minutes. We'll be back in 7 minutes, whatever it is.
You can put little games on the screen through OBS. Like the chat can do stuff. You can run like, you know, little, you can put bots in there to entertain the chat if they're, you know, particularly hyperactive.
The thing is, I don't want the chat to be entertained. I'm literally like, I'm making this screen as not as boring as possible. Like it's just like a slideshow of photos of people I've taken a selfie with. But literally go and do your own things. Go like fill up your water bottle.
Go touch grass. Drink a cup of water. You're welcome. If you've been watching me for this long,
you know what, so when we were in lockdown, so I'm in Melbourne, we had some of the longest lockdowns in the world. Just ask us about it. I went on a walk one day and took my camera with me, like my video camera, and got like 10 or 15 minutes of like close-up macro footage of like dewy grass and the sun kind of setting. And God, I don't even know where that video is. I need to go and find that and bring it back, because for a while that was my BRB screen. And I did not connect, because I think the phrase wasn't popularized at the time, but touch grass with the literal footage of grass. I'm going to bring that back. I'm going to bring that back.
Not this grass. The grass outside.
Touch grass outside. Yeah, don't touch your screens. Go outside and touch some grass. It actually reminds me of something that Barjo does, where when he takes a BRB, he has like extended pre-produced videos that he'll put in there of him like walking outside. Or like, and then like walking off a pier and then like flopping around in the ocean and then walking back on camera live in real time. And he's like, oh, I'm dry again. Okay, here we go. But it's a very, it's worth doing. It's worth scheduling breaks for yourself. I mean, even in radio, you know, if you hear a radio DJ schedule 3 or 4 songs in a row,
they're doing a poo.
Yeah. Or the next break will be something really wildly creative.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, or they're preparing an interview or something like that.
They're absolutely using the bathroom, 100%.
Hey, you know, I mean, most people know I'm a teacher. If a child is taking a little while, maybe it was, you know, maybe it was the big one. They weren't necessarily mucking around. I'm not going to make them feel bad for a human experience, an animal 100%. Experience.
Yeah,
for sure. Speaking of experiences, I'm more than sure that you have had a lot of good experiences, but there have been some not so good experiences. As a trans gamer that puts themselves out there, what has been your experience that you have learned from, that's really taken you back, surprised you, and how has that influenced your creativity going forward?
Okay, it's a great question. And actually, it's good that you said creativity, because it actually does come back to creative problem solving. And I will answer this question, but I just really need it quickly, because this is going to be groundwork for the answer. Okay, creativity is Lego blocks.
Yep.
And your goal in life is to collect as many different Lego blocks, and those Lego blocks are ideas, thoughts, concepts, whatever. And your job, if you're being creative, is just sticking those Lego blocks together in a different way. So you, for this podcast, have come up with, okay, women in gaming and podcasts and interviews, and stick them all together. And then you're sticking a fourth person onto it. Let's add Triana, and that's going to look different to sticking this together, right? So creativity and creative thinking is the core of it. Now, when it comes to negative experiences, my thought comes towards the problem solving of how I get around that and how I kind of deal with that. So in a social media context, I'm quite strict on like access controls for things like comments and replies. On platforms like Instagram, I have it set so that you cannot comment on my content unless it varies, unless either you're following me or unless I am following you. And there are times where I need to lock it down, and it goes to, you can only comment on my stuff if I follow you, because I know the people who I follow are not going to be turds, are not going to, bully me. And if they do, it's like, well, why are we friends? Why are we mutual?
Exactly.
So the negative responses that I've had, for example, from things on Instagram, were when I didn't have that in place. And then I put that in place, and now it doesn't happen. On, in chat, I've got a really good block list of words, which come up.
Amazing.
And in fact, I need to rebuild it because it was really, really cool. But I had certain phrases that if people said them in chat, the bot would like snipe back at them with like a snappy comeback.
But only something they can see? Or
no, something that everyone can see. So here's an example, right? So say you've had that experience where you're streaming and someone comes in and maybe they don't like the game you're playing, or maybe they don't like the way you're playing the game. Let's say it's The Sims, right? And they come in and they're like, "Oh, you should put a door in the side of the house so that they can get out to the pool." Or you should play Fortnite instead of this, right? And it's people telling you what you should do. I freaking hate it. Backseat driving. I hate it, right? So I had an auto command that anytime anyone said, "Oh, you should do something," it would track for the words "you should." And if anyone said "you should," the bot would snipe back with, "Yeah, but should she though?" And then I didn't have to address it because the bot is looking at it.
Your bot sounds savage, and I love it.
But then they go, "Oh,
savage bot."
Yeah. And then if I do want to bring it up, I'll be like, "Yeah, no, I probably won't do that because I'm doing this instead." And that was kind of my way to get around that was, I'm kind of chatting about what the bot said there. So it's not even about your comment. It's about the way the bot addressed it. So I'm not even like making that person feel bad about it per se.
Yeah.
In terms of like in person, I've had very, very few negative interactions with people in person. I've been very, very lucky in that vast majority of them have been really lovely and really encouraging. I had someone, in fact, just recently who I really respect, and I had no idea that they felt this way about me, but they said, like, I love seeing you on my timeline. Every time I see you on my timeline, makes me feel really happy and really good. And I'm like, but you're like one of the coolest people. You're not allowed to say that. I didn't think you knew I existed.
An Uno reverse card right back at you.
but yeah, it was Uno reverse. Exactly. But yeah, so in terms of in person, it is, if there's someone around who I know I'm going to have a negative response with or have a negative interaction with, making sure I am around people who don't give me that kind of a reaction so that the other person can't say something. Because if I'm alone and someone says something, like it kind of opens the door for someone to have that conversation. But if I'm hanging out with a friend, no one's going to come up and be like, "I think this thing about you is shit." I'm like, really? You're going to make this a 2-on-1? Because you're outnumbered here. You don't have the numbers in this conversation. And again, that comes back to the creative thinking and the Lego bricks of ideas. You know,
Mm.
any idea, anything you're interested in is a different thing that you can use and kind of clip into another idea that you have and clip into another idea you have to create this thing that will hopefully be helpful. Like, that's creative thinking. That's what it's
Yeah.
about. And I think we're all capable of it. And it's just how I then use that to counter the negative interactions that I have.
That's wonderful that you feel empowered to do that. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful.
Thank you for asking.
No, that's totally fine. I do want to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, but like, how do you
Oh, here we go,
remove
because
the
this is 1-on-1. I'm not outnumbered.
I no, I just, how do you remove the emotion from it? Like, how do you, like, I know you've come up with all of these very, very logical, very systematic approaches to not having as many negative experiences. But when they do happen, or when they've happened in the past, like, did you have an emotional reaction, and how have you like combated that?
Okay, so there's a few different ways to answer this. I'll do the Can you remind me? I'm going to answer your question in a sec from a from the emotion side, but I'll answer it from the programmatic side first.
Okay.
If I see, for example, a comment come through like on Twitter, right? And it's from someone I don't know, and it's because of something I said, like maybe I've been positive, God forbid, about like trans people existing.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, right? Let's say I've said something about that, and then some random decides to like jump in the replies and talk shit. I then go, okay, I don't know who this person is. Why are they replying to me? And then I go into my Twitter settings and I set it so that I only see comments, or I only see replies from people who I follow or from people who follow me. There's like different settings that you can
Okay.
play, and it literally filters them out of the replies. So I just don't see them. So that helps remove the emotion out of it, because I'm not seeing it. I'm not
Okay.
focusing on it.
Yeah.
But when they do come through, I guess there's a few ways that I look at it. This is the emotional side of it. The first is, I am very, very slowly learning. I'm trying my best to learn this. Everybody is doing their best.
Even the
And
crappy ones that call you
even the crappy
names?
ones. Well, so like let's say it's, you know, uh we need a fake name for someone on Twitter.
Fboy69.
Fboy69 jumps in the Twitter replies. That's perfect. Thank you. Like, and says, and it's like, oh, I think you blah, 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 whatever, and mouths off. It's like, well, okay,
Yeah.
he's doing that because in his life, there's obviously something that has gone on up to this point to get him to the place where this responding is somehow making him feel good. That's his attempt at dealing with his emotions, at dealing with his problems, at trying to come up with a solution, is going on Twitter and shit talking people.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying his best. He's not doing a very good job of it at the moment, but he's trying his best.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'm a perfectionist. So I am trying to at the same time judge myself more kindly, because I am my own worst critic. But
Oh, yeah,
also,
we all
like,
are.
when I don't know, when I'm in a situation and it's not going my way on whatever level, if it's not, how can I phrase it? Like, I don't know, let's say something I'm doing falls short of the fantastic ideas that I had for it. Um, I'm actually phrasing up here. I have to assume that the person who has tried this thing just hasn't worked, but they're still trying their best. They're not actively trying to be
Yeah.
terrible. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Okay. No, I
So
get that.
that's the angle I'm trying to come at it from, is, you know, everybody is trying their best to not be terrible, to everyone's trying their best to get through the day. You know, there's a lot of shit going on in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I try and remove the emotion from it. Is they're trying their best, I'm trying my best.
Have you always had this approach though?
No, absolutely not. And that is evidenced by the number of people who I've replied to and then gone, "Ooh, shouldn't have sent that." Delete. But most of the
Oh,
time, when I'm sending those replies, it's the people who don't follow me, and I'm like, "Why am I giving you my
yeah. Why?
energy? Why
Yeah,
am I?"
that comes back to the energy for
You,
sure.
you said you said protecting your energy, and there's another concept, not just protecting your energy, but directing your energy. And
Yeah.
it's I can protect my energy by just like putting a barrier up, but also directing my energy. Do I want to direct my energy towards fboy69 on Twitter, who is, you know, having a go at me for whatever random reason? I don't know who he is, doesn't even follow me. Versus I can direct my attention towards Doomcutie, who wants to record a podcast with me. It's like, well, where am I going to direct my energy? To somewhere where
Yeah.
I'm going to get something out of it and the conversation's going to be great and it's going to be meaningful and it's going to have that kind of an impact? Or am I going to waste my time on Twitter arguing with some nobody? Like, of course I'm going to direct my attention to something that's going to have more impact. So
Can you?
that's how I try and take the emotion out of it as much as
Yeah.
possible.
And you know what? This is what, if you're listening as a woman and you are not in your 30s, this is what happens. You turn, honestly, it's like a switch. It's a bloody switch. And all of a sudden, the I don't give a F what other people think if they don't care about me switch turns on. And next minute, you look back on your life and like, why? Why did I do that? Why did I respond that way? It's
You know what?
brilliant.
I think that switch flipped for me when I started transitioning and changed my name to Triana, because I had for so long been concerned about what people were going to think of me, right? And how
Yeah.
people were going to perceive that change.
Yeah.
And then some personal circumstances changed, and I was like, right, let's go all in here. Like,
Yep.
let's go for it. And literally nobody came back talking shit, and everything that I had feared in my head was just me catastrophizing and building up
Yeah.
this scenario that was never going to happen.
It's so easy to do though. We get into our heads a lot
Mm.
about it'd be about anything. Like, you know, obviously a major change in your you know, the gender that you present as, like that's major. But people will be like, I think about it every day. I'm like, damn, you know, I really wish I was blonde. You know, blonde hair just looks so much better. You know, it looks better in hairstyles. And what if I changed it? But then like, oh, what people think, and then I'd have to like go and like maintain it and all this stuff. And you get right in your head about how that process would happen and how bad it would be and all that kind of stuff. Or if you're making like a new move in your career or you want to, you know, create something, like honestly, the amount of doubt I had creating this podcast,
Really?
huge. Absolutely. I I had this I knew I wanted to create it. I knew what I wanted it to be because I knew that there was nothing like it out there. And I at the end of last year I was like, this is what I want to do, but I didn't know if I could actually do it. And so it was marinating. It was marinating in the brain for like 4 months of the beginning of this year, and I was like looking at things, and I was actually trying to see if it actually was a thing anywhere else, and it just wasn't. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm like, am I relevant enough? Do I know enough about games? And you know, because I'd actually the previous year I'd been horrendously online bullied, and I was like, can I actually do this? And I was like, you know what? You have done X, Y, Z, blah blah blah. You've got 2 years podcasting experience, you know, and I learned from that online bullying experience. I was like, you know what? I just need to take up lots of space. I need to be in rooms where people appreciate me and think I'm good at what I do, because I am. And
Yes. Yes.
and you know what? It worked. And I was like, okay, this is what it's going to be called. And I'm going to get 2 other people on. I was like, okay. I was like creating the Google form because I was like, I wanted people who actually wanted to be on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, people who would show up and have a deep interest in women in gaming. And I was getting a lot of flack from the spaces I was in. I was in Xbox parties and they were like, what do you mean? It's going to be all girls, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you can't come on. Because the spaces I was in, like people just like invited all their friends on or, and then they like, it was all about who you knew and all that kind of stuff, right? Like big American gaming podcasters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just wasn't interested in it. I was interested in the stories. I was interested in, and I know that women are as well, because we just are seeking that connection, right? Anyway, so I'm filling out the Google form and I'm like, I don't know. Am I good enough? Like, is this even going to be relevant? And so much doubt. And I put it out there. Next minute, Alana Pierce retweets it. It's got 100,000 impressions. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm going to have to actually do this now. And then
you got a lot of holding your feet to the fire on that one.
She was like, oh, you want to do this, do you? Okay, let's do it. And I was like, and then she was in my DM. She was like, I can't commit to the podcast fully, but I'll come on. I'm like, okay.
You got no choice now.
I had
if it
no.
wasn't
I
happening
had
before, it has to happen now.
Yeah. So it was like I put that out there, and it was like the universe kept saying yes, and I had no choice. And I'm sure there are multiple situations in your life where, whether it's buying that house or moving to that. Oh, we're pausing. Good thing we're recording.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are multiple times in people's lives where they have just, whether it's moving state, whether it's buying that house, they question those big meaningful moves. And I was like, you know what? If this is how important it feels to me, then it's worth doing, and it's worth putting that energy into, because it was like a magnet. I couldn't help but want to do this. But I tell you what, there have been, and this is a real confession, there have been so many almost uncomfortable conversations with men about my podcast. And it's very strange. It's almost like I've been considered, like, someone said to me, they're like, you're really good at what you do, and with your podcast and everything like that, but it's not a fit for us. I'm just like, I don't walk around spouting, women in gaming like all the time. I'm not an uber feminist, or, like someone who's really aggressive in that manner. I try and portray a feminine energy all the time, and being aggressive and in people's faces is not, and that's not something I want to portray. So it's been a little bit confusing. And I mentioned this on other podcasts that I've been on, like, just a lot of derogatory comments about creating this safe space for women. And I couldn't care less that some really important, influential, knowledgeable women in gaming don't want to come on your macho neckbeard podcast. That seems like a you problem, Brad.
Skill issue.
Skill issue for sure. So yeah, I honestly, it's really, and we're not famous. Like, we do stuff in the space, and we're creative, and people consume our content, but we're not, a celebrity. But sometimes if you get too much in your head about it, and you worry too much about what other people think, because of all these zeros and ones that we're staring at, and at least hearing at the moment, like, you're giving so much meaning to that. And if it's affecting your mental health, like, maybe stop that. But yeah. I was in that trap, and I'm sure you were too. and it's all about
There are,
growth.
it is all about growth. There are a few thoughts. The first one, and I mentioned this on the women in esports panel that happened at PAX this year,
Yeah,
and actually on the women in gaming panel. Now you were there at the women in gaming panel,
I was.
and I tried to quote someone, and I totally flubbed the quote. And now that you're here, I can tell you it was a Brene Brown quote. So can
Yeah.
I
Yep.
literally just read this quote verbatim off
Yeah.
of the internet, right? So this is part of the negative reaction from people, right? If you are not in the arena getting your ass kicked on occasion, I am not interested in or open to your feedback. There are a million cheap seats in the world today filled with people who will never be brave with their own lives, but will spend every ounce of energy they have hurling advice and judgment at those of us trying to dare greatly. Their only contributions are criticism, cynicism, and fear mongering. If you're criticizing from a place where you're not also putting yourself on the line, I'm not interested in your feedback. End quote.
Preach.
Right? And so, in terms of taking the emotion out of it that we were talking about before, that is exactly it. But also, it's people in the arena getting their ass kicked. It's people like Alana who said, yeah, this would be amazing. Get around it. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like for so many of us, the thing that we need is to just have someone to
Yeah.
back us and say, yeah,
Yeah.
you're friggin' great. Like, do it. And so I try to be that to as many people as possible, I guess, because I've had people who, have backed me, and I know the change that's made in what
Yeah.
I create and in what I do.
And it just takes one person. It really
Yeah.
does. Like I've you look at the numbers. Numbers rule the world, really. And sometimes I look at the numbers and I'm like, oh, they're a bit mid, or I feel like, the growth percentage isn't as much as I wanted it to be. And,
Yeah, but you
like,
just change the metric. You just change the metric. It's like, okay, so it's not the growth percentage, but of viewers of whatever it is, but also then you try and measure that against what did I get out of creating this
yeah,
emotionally? What kind of
yeah,
conversation did I have here that has fundamentally changed how I approach my creative practice, how I approach my life? Like the value add there is worth more than the
it's
numbers.
priceless. It is. But you know what turned, and I was in like, I wasn't spiraling, but I was like, and and it took one message. Uh, lovely, lovely Miss Muffin Bear. I'll shout her out. She's got two little kids, and she's just starting her Instagram, gaming, sharing, all that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
So lovely. And I want to read. I want to read exactly what it was, so I can do it justice. Because it warmed my heart. It really did. Where are we? And we
What
started talking from then on in, and she shared on her Instagram story. She shared like a screen grab of the podcast, and I responded. I said, "Thank you so much," and she said, "No worries. I'm absolutely loving this podcast. Thank you so much for creating this. I've been really discouraged about sharing my gaming because I'm a female and I'm a mum, but this podcast has been really inspiring and motivating." Especially with Ellie, seeing her doing her thing, being a breastfeeding mum has been really inspiring, because I just didn't think I could do content because I'm breastfeeding, and now I know I can. Anyway, I'm rambling. Absolutely love what you girls are doing. Please don't ever stop.
and you
And
like printed that out and had it framed. If
honestly,
you haven't, you should. You should print that out,
I
don't laminate it, maybe put it in a frame or something, and like put it somewhere on a wall where you're going to walk past it every day, because that is the heart of what you're doing. And when you
but
look at
yeah,
the
it's great.
fears that, and I've, by the way, just gone and followed at It's Muffin Bear on Instagram, so thank you for the
Yeah.
recommendation. But when you look at the statistics in Australia, 48% of
Yeah.
the people who are playing games are women.
Yeah. And you know
So
what?
having
And I
that
don't care. I
gap
don't care
between,
if it's on your phone, on your Nintendo. It's, multiplayer online games are not the be all and end all. People who
Mhm.
sit in Xbox parties and people on PlayStation don't do that, but they're not as social. But people sitting in Xbox parties, for hours and hours on end, that is not the norm. That is the exception.
Mhm.
And for every single gaming woman out there who thinks that they're not a gamer or they're not relevant or they're not included in this industry because they have that one game that they love to play, like, just stop it. It's not true.
It counts. It's allowed.
It does. Yeah.
You don't have to play Call of Duty to be a real gamer.
You heard it here first. Triana said
Breaking.
so it must.
Hashtag breaking. Holy shit. But also, I think there's different angles to the content that comes up from people like It's Muffin Bear that haven't been explored by the people who've made it to this point in their career so far. Like, it's the kind of other side of that expression. If you want to, I'm going to butcher this. What is it? If you only do what you've always done, you'll only get what you've always got.
I've always got. Yeah.
Right? So I didn't butcher it. Let's go. Confidence.
Yeah.
But like,
no, that's right.
But if every other creator in the world has approached it from a certain angle, and it's Muffin Bear is like, yeah, but I'm not like that. Like, that's actually your superpower. That's actually what makes you super different. And someone who focuses on stories. I look at people like Loz, who produces Griefed, right? And the attention to detail and the love and the passion that is poured into that project, and the storytelling that is happening there is not happening elsewhere. The love and attention to detail and passion that's being poured into what the team at Snowball Esports are doing is not being done in too many other places, and it's having the story and wanting to share that story and doing it in a way that's different to everybody else. Like, that's the superpower. That's the superpower. That's the magic trick, is that you're bringing something different.
And
so you should be real damn proud. It's Muffin Bear. I'm gonna go look at all your content now. Now that I'm following you.
She's gonna be all up in there commenting. He's like, yes, queen, you do you. Love your work. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Vibes. All the emojis. Love it. And you know what? It's and you probably make that woman's day. Yeah. And because I've been there. I've been the people don't really know this, but I was quite lonely in the days when I had my first child. It can be very isolating, and the mum Instagram community is probably even more toxic than any esports. Any esports tournament. Like, honestly,
you heard it here first.
Motherhood is it's rough out there in the hood, and I feel like so many women out there in those early days, like they want to engage in a hobby that they've always loved, but they feel like they don't have permission to do that because they feel bad that they're like spending time away from their children. But then I hear that, and I'm in this magical stage at the moment where my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old, we can all play games together. We can play Mario Kart together. And that is bloody magical. That is honestly
so good.
My childhood trauma disappears when I play games with my girls. It's just because you are in the depths, you're in the trenches, and I want every single gaming mum to know that it's okay, it will end, and eventually you'll be able to play, with your children. And it'll be magical and you'll cry for the first time. And then eventually you'll rage and you'll get into fights but you'll still love them afterwards. So yeah, it's those moments for me. And that's probably a little bit more of an emotional response to everything. But like that is fuel. As much as the negativity and the misogynistic comments is fuel, it's not as big as something like that. Like that's truly meaningful. And I'm so glad that you've had people in your court, because yes, I'm an ally, but I don't know anything about being a trans woman in this community. And I'm so grateful that you're here.
Do most of these episodes end with people crying on camera? What the hell?
Most recently, I've had a couple of criers, so I'm pleased. I'm pleased. I'm doing my job. I'm touching hearts.
Tears of a Gamer Girl is the next season.
We're actually selling those on our Patreon.
Oh my God, Gamer Girl tears.
Do you want angry tears? Do you want sad
right
tears?
Next to the bathwater.
Look, I support all women in gaming, even if you do have that niche. It's not my niche, but and if you're making the most and you're making it work, well done to you. And that's what I say. Because I certainly couldn't keep up with that. There's no way I'm exercising in underwear and then selling it. I would never. I would never exercise. What do you mean?
No, mad respect, and it's the same thing of like, people. Can I just, in defense of these wonderful people, people talk down on them.
Oh no, it's fine.
Because they've found their niche and they create content that makes them feel good about themselves, and they absolutely love it. They make bank. They feel empowered. They buy a house at a super young age because they've made all
with
this
cash
money
in a briefcase. That's what I imagine.
Like, and then they surround themselves with other people who are doing cool things, who believe in them, and they find their people. And if that content doesn't vibe with you, then there's someone else out there doing different content that will. So just leave them alone. Don't be a little turd about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I will never like look down on anyone. I'll think, geez, that's a lot of simps. But like,
mad respect at all times.
Outside of that, and I've had a few conversations with him, because I'm actually I'm just fascinated. Like, I'm fascinated with the process. Like, what kind of, what does the everyday look like for someone who's that kind of content creator? Like, it really, I don't know, it's just interesting to me. So yeah, absolute mad respect, and just mad respect for anyone who just keeps going. I think Domino Jack posted a tweet recently.
It's possible.
What? Yes, highly possible.
She's on there quite often. I'm such a fan of Domino Jack. She's so cool.
She's
so
fantastic. Lovely. I was lucky enough to be on a panel with her at PAX.
How was
how to work in gaming when you're not a gamer.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, when you're not a streamer. Yeah.
I didn't get to see that, but I wanted to.
It was good. It was in the really cozy theater. It was very dark and intimate. I liked it. Low sensory,
Yeah.
It was great. And she had a tweet out. This was probably before PAX, and she said, why, I'm really struggling at the moment, continuing to create content. What keeps you going? And, had all these responses, it's my community, my family, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if I stop, there's one less woman in gaming. And I know that's like a really heavy, like it feels heavy, but for me, for other people it might seem heavy, but for me, it's just good. Like I'm sure you might come up against these feelings as well, because you're part of a gender minority, you're part of a community that needs to be seen. So do you find yourself feeling that kind of way towards the continuation of
Um,
this?
to a point. There's a few different angles there. Let me try and work through them. The first one is, if I wouldn't do it, like, what's your motivation for keeping on going, right?
Mm.
And you said that there'll be one fewer person in gaming. For me, I actually take the kind of opposite angle of that, and it's through actually one of my one of my colleagues at work, Jackie Kinder. Shout out to Jackie Kinder, who is the absolute
So many
Ted
shout outs
Lasso.
today. I love it.
Ted Lasso of Australian community radio. She's just such an encourager, my goodness. And her thing was like, if a show doesn't go to air, nobody died. If a song, if a segment doesn't land perfectly, it's okay. Nobody died. It's just a
But
segment
did you
didn't go well.
die?
But
But did
exactly, right? If I don't stream this week, it's okay. I didn't die. It's just that
Yeah.
I'm not streaming this week. It's totally,
Yeah.
totally fine.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the opposite angle of that. And in terms of, like, if I were to stop streaming, okay, but I haven't died. And also, I completely believe that there will also be other people who are on different journeys who will come up and share their experiences and
Yeah.
do it through their angle and do their own beautiful, unique thing.
Mhm.
And that's great. And that's going to feed into the diversity of the community even more. Um, so that's that angle. The other part, in, I guess, the core of the question was like, was it like feeling alone, or was it like lacking the motivation?
It was more about feeling like a smaller part of a whole. So understanding that you don't want to take away from the whole by not being present. That's how I kind of see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I get that. Um,
But that's
but
okay if it doesn't
also
resonate with you.
part of it, yeah, no, and not everything has to resonate with everybody. But part of it is, I guess, part of it is protecting your energy and knowing that if I am not part of the whole, even for a little while, it will just become a different shape that I can then rejoin later, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Everything
Oh,
goes
yeah.
on, as Porter Robinson taught us. Everything
For
goes
sure.
on, even when we're gone. So, there will be more sunrises and sunsets. There'll be more creators come in to do their own cool, unique thing.
Mhm.
Um, and
Even
that's
without
nothing to
you.
be, even without me. And
Yeah.
I then get to, kind of sit on the sidelines and be their cheerleader when that
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
champion them and what they do.
Mhm. That's
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
It's honestly, and it's just as valid. It's just as beautiful. And it can be done in such a meaningful way for people who are putting themselves out there. And we both know it takes so much to show up every day and create.
I saw I'm gonna have to try and like scribble this. I don't know if this is gonna appear on the screen well at all, but like,
You
my
should.
apologies, right?
I
So
can
yeah.
read your little lanyards there
mm,
from all the events you've been to.
Oh, these ones here. So
Yeah.
we've got
I can read full
VidCon here.
access.
Yeah, that was VidCon 2019. RIP VidCon. DreamHack. We got
Yeah.
hacks. We got another
Yeah.
DreamHack one. We've got Melbourne Esports Open MEO. Let's go. Okay, so here's it starts with a bunch of circles, right? And then it
Okay.
says like, this is what people think consistency is. I'm just gonna have to like scribble really quickly here. But then
It's
like the
okay.
top row is like every circle is full to the brim. It's like, this is what people think consistency is. See how they're all like
Okay. Yep.
totally full? When
Yeah.
in actuality, consistency and giving your best every day is going to look like this. Bottom row, right? Some days it's
Okay.
going to be full. Other days it might not be full, but that's still giving your best. And it's
Yeah.
still, that's this is the
Mhm.
worst telestrator ever. Look at this. But that's what giving your best is, and that's what the
Yeah,
consistency is. And don't judge yourself on the days when you're not at 100%.
for sure. I used to feel that way, like with, because I do a little bit of gaming news and some gaming reviews, like written ones. They take, the reviews take a lot of work. You're talking about writing a small essay, a couple of times a month. Like,
Mm.
not many gamers do that if they're, not being paid, because it does take a lot. And I know that some days I'm gonna do, like the other day I did like three news things, but like yesterday I did none, and that's okay. I'm still part of the team. Like I still amped up other people's posts that they did, and like that's why you're in a team, right? So yeah, some days I can feel like I'm not contributing enough, but I know that when I'm on for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So I get it. And like I said, it's honestly it takes time to reach this level of maturity. And I think that's not only why I brought you on, but the whole reason for this is because there's a lot of conversations about uwu girls and fuck that guy and all that kind of stuff, right? But there's not enough model conversations about reasoning and emotional maturity in this space, and what it takes to be a healthy, protected energy gamer girl, like where's that content? So yeah.
It's here.
Yeah, it's here. It's here. If you want it, it's here. We're here every week. For sure. But yeah, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you're here. Honestly, it's just amazing. It's just, my heart is full. My heart is so full, and
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for the energy and enthusiasm that you bring to this as well. You wouldn't be able to create a platform like this without that really deep passion and connection to the content, to the games, but to the community as well. It's really, really special what you're creating here. So you should be very
thank you,
proud.
thank you.
I wanted to make sure that was public and not in the green room, okay? Doesn't get edited out.
All right, as I feel like we're meeting a natural kind of close, I will ask, what have you been playing? What will you be playing? And what are you going to be streaming? What's going on? What can people look forward to for you?
Okay, so we talked about Forza Horizon earlier on, and I'm
Have
moving
you tried
away
motorsport?
from. Well, I was gonna say I'm moving away from Forza Horizon because I've been playing that every single week since it came out in 2018. Horizon 4, I
Mm-hmm.
want to say, and then Horizon 5, and I love both of them, but I'm just so burnt out on them.
Yeah.
Um, and I had been waiting for Forza Motorsport for so long, and it is out, and it is everything I had hoped for. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
still some bugs to work out. There's still some kind of shifts that are being made in their approach to it, but basically, it's everything I had hoped that it would be. At this early stage of its lifespan, so
Yeah.
I've moved across. I'm assuming not permanently. I mean, I might come back to Forza Horizon at some point, but Forza Motorsport is where I'm kind of setting up my home now, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to work my way through that. And I'm really enjoying that. I've also been playing Fortnite OG,
I
which
have
has been,
too.
oh my god, it's so good. I can see why they had like their biggest ever day of numbers of people jumping back into Fortnite OG like the day that launched. Like it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. But I also love the fact that it's like Fortnite, the original island, but also with like a 2023 graphics kind of
Yeah.
overhaul. So it's like the HDR remake of the first season of Fortnite. Like it's great.
Remastered.
Yeah, Fortnite remastered. They don't talk in that voice. I don't know why I did that.
Love
So I've
that.
been really enjoying that. In my idle time, I've been playing a game. This is so embarrassing. It's a little like Android game. I think it might be on iOS called Zen Idol.
Zen
um,
Idol?
IDLE.
Oh, okay.
It's like an idle game, but it's got like a bunch of like, oh, hang on, I'm gonna log into it and it's gonna tell me that I've got like daily freebies to claim or whatever. It's literally just like it spawns ball. Oh, hang on, let me zoom in so that you can actually see it. It spawns balls and then you have to like prestige them and buy. This is a terrible piece of, it's so difficult to show you why this is meant to be a good game. Like this is what the screen looks like. It's
Yeah.
like there's balls
Balls are
falling, but
falling.
you get points. You get points for them falling, and then you build up, and then you buy more, and then you make the.
So
I put far too much effort into this game to be describing it so poorly. It is like a mobileware. It's like it's not on
what
any
is the
kind of
aim?
level.
What
Like
is the goal?
to get to get the most
Balls?
monies, get the most monies, I guess.
Okay.
But it's just an endless game. Like it's just an idle game. It's like
Okay.
cookie clicker. It's just like see how
Yeah,
far you can go.
okay. Right.
Um,
Amazing. Look,
disastrous to my personal life when I could be like, you know, sending someone a message telling them I love them, and instead I am sitting there like prestiging the red ball to go up to be worth like, you know, 1 septillion points,
once
you know, like ridiculous.
just you can just gamify your life, right? So just say,
Mm.
if I make 5 nice comments on Instagram to creators, I can play.
You know what? I've literally done that.
Yeah.
Have I told you this?
No?
Okay, so let me slide across to my home screen on my phone. This is going to be a special one for the people watching. Okay, so this is my. Oh, hang on, let me just make sure there's. Okay, let me move that over to that screen. Let me move that over to that screen. Okay, we're going to be fine. So this is my this is one of my pages on my home phone, and each of these
Mhm.
are on my home phone. What on my on my mobile? And each of these are different, like daily to do lists. And when you've done something, like let's say I
Feel the
brushed my
ring?
teeth this morning, right? I've done this, right? Like, I think it turned blue.
Yeah.
And so when I do the things that I need to do each day, gamifying my life, I tick it. And then by the end of the day, hopefully I have a nice, colorful home screen full of things like
Oh,
doing Duolingo
awesome.
or doing Pokemon Go, but also like, did I share some piece of content about music? Did I share some piece of
Yeah.
music or or content or my thoughts about games? Did I do some kind of physical activity today? Did I
Mhm.
spend at least 15 minutes outside? Did I meditate today? Did I update Instagram? Did I have a healthy lunch? Did I avoid impulse buys?
Hey.
Did I, like in my head, come up with 3 things that I am grateful for? And when I've done
Mm,
those, I like tick them off on the screen so I can see them.
nice.
That's me like gamifying my life. It's not necessarily, to your point, it's not necessarily, you know, write 5 comments on people's Instagram.
Yeah.
But there is one on there. Where is it? Holy crap, where's it gone? There's one that's on there that was called like cheerleader. And oh no, hype
Ah,
gal. Sorry. It's called
hype
hype
gal.
gal. It's this one here. And because I have said nice things about you, I'm gonna tick it perfect. There we go, right?
Definitely. You
And so
definitely a
it's
hype
like
girl today.
the key of hype gal is, have you just said something encouraging to someone else in the last 24 hours, whether
Yeah.
it's on social media, whether it's in real life, whether it's something like that. And most days I get to tick that, so that's gamifying your life. It's
For
done.
sure. Well, that's awesome that you have a system like that. That's thank you so much for sharing that, because no, it can be, people might think, oh, it's a bit like embarrassing, but have you seen how people like mindful journal, or people who do
Mm.
that knitting, like their mental health for the day, like, or I saw someone actually they're making like a blanket of how in love they feel.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's deep.
they're like well, this particular person is, openly dating, like not committed to any one
Mm.
person, but But yeah, just like how in love they feel, or how intense those feelings are. So
Wow.
it's very
Yeah, right. That's cool.
it's very similar to that. I like those journals where it's like the little squares, and it's
Yeah.
like, how much, and it's like in graphs almost, like how much sleep did I get, and they color in like how many, or like what the weather was like, or like, I find those really aesthetically pleasing, but
But I
I
can't
couldn't
maintain
I
one
couldn't
because
do
they
it. I
involve
couldn't
like
maintain one.
sitting down and like finding a pen and like coloring it in and this sort of thing, which is why I use this app. It's a free app, by the way. It's called Habits. It's open source,
Habits.
or Loop Habit Tracker or something to that effect. It's on Android. It may not be on iOS. Others probably exist, I think, that are pay for. But I can then go and look at like. Let me just check and make sure that I, for example, did have breakfast yesterday and today. Tick. It then tells you like, here are the days that you've done this thing.
Mm.
So I can like go into the nerdy data and say like, look at the days that I didn't
Yeah,
have
there you
breakfast. Wasn't
go.
I
Yeah.
naughty? Wasn't I
Oh,
naughty
that,
on those
yeah,
days?
okay.
So that looks very aesthetically pleasing to me.
I think it could be done better. So, watch this space, Doomcutie and Triana creating,
Whoa, we're gonna do our own app.
and then I think it would be way better if you could share. You could share and like track points and like get rewards and like yeah. I think that'd be awesome. And like
Harvest
little
users'
dings.
data and then exploit it. Yeah, I
Oh,
love that.
I don't want to sell it to anyone. I think it would be I think it would be cool. Like, I don't
Would be
know
cool.
how, and I don't know if you could like hook it up to your vacuum and be like, set a timer for vacuuming. Like how much time did you vacuum? And then there's like a score and like who's the number one vacuumer, in the
Oh
use.
wow. Oh,
Like,
I love the idea of like doing the vacuuming and then you get like a little Xbox achievement pop.
yeah,
Did the,
exactly.
did the
And
vacuuming for 6 weeks in a row.
yeah, all time world champion vacuumer.
Mm.
Um, anyway,
There's
I've
leaderboards. There's like a global
yeah,
leaderboard of
yeah.
vacuumers.
Oh my goodness.
But you know that it would be like with Mixer when they had Forza Horizon 4 and you got points for streaming. There would be people who just like leave their vacuum on and just be racking up points 24 hours a day and you wouldn't be able to catch them.
That would be like really expensive though. Like you just have your vacuum on. And I think, I
Mate.
don't know, who I have a stick vacuum. You have to press the button. You have to like
Oh,
MacGyver it, like wrap some sticky tape around the handle or something.
remember when people on the sorry, I'm just gonna grab a prop here. Remember when people had the what's it called? The Forza Horizon 4 and they brought in a rule that's no, you can't just like leave your car sitting there. You have to keep moving. So they would get like a
Yeah.
hair tie and put the hair tie like around the thumbstick like this
Yeah.
and so like the gope or on the accelerator and so they would
Yeah.
just constantly be sitting there doing donuts. They just like keep the control like that, set it on the desk, and it would be 24 hours a day of just this car doing donuts and streaming on Mixer. What a time to be alive. You could just find a hair tie and wrap it, stick it to the vacuum stick so that it was constantly on, racking up points for yourself. Have we gone off topic?
We may have, but you know what? That's okay. I've let it because why not? I was in control, and then I just decided to encourage the craziness. But you know what? It's so real because it's literally like I remember explaining it to someone as when you're leaving at a party or like leaving a friend's house or whatever.
Mhm.
Not that I do this often, but it's that situation where you're leaving, you've got your car keys in your hand, and you're saying, "Oh yeah, goodbye," and it's like, "Oh, one more thing," and then you start talking again, and then like you sort of like moving towards the car, and you're kind of getting to the destination, and you know that it's going to end soon, but you just enjoy the time that you have. And yeah, but I think probably there's probably something unconsciously like in my mind where I'm like, this is great, it's good vibes, it's great content, I love capturing it, why wouldn't I want to capitalize on that and continue to film, because hashtag women in gaming, um
100%.
100%.
I was desperately looking around for a car key prop, and I don't have one. What a shame.
I don't keep my car keys on my desk.
No.
I mean, you might. I do not, because that would be crazy. If I don't put my car keys in the bowl next to the door, I lose them.
They hang on the back of the door for me.
Oh, okay. Like that. But no, my door's open. You can see hold on, this way. Yeah, front door. You can see my front door there. So
right.
It's open.
Okay.
I know. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much to our watchers on YouTube and our listeners on Spotify. It's been a fantastic time. Thank you again to Triana for gracing us with their presence. Fantastic time. We love to see it. All of the details for Triana will be in the description. She posts quite often, so I'm sure you can keep up to date with all of her socials. I don't know what your scheduling time is on your multiple accounts, so I'm just going to say that. And yeah, thank you. At the end of the day, gamers, touch grass and take breaks and protect your energy.
Beautiful. What a way to end.
What a way to end. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next time for our next episode of COAGG Conversations.